Liberty in our lifetimes in a free state of our own. That's the vision. That's the dream. We are building it in New Hampshire. I'm Eric Brakey, your host and renegade statesman for the Porcupine Report. Welcome to your source for porcupine news and free-range conversation on matters of liberty. All right, let's hop into the show. Hey there, all you porcupines, you. This is your host, your renegade statesman, your executive director of the Free State Project in New Hampshire. Welcome to episode number 50 of the Porcupine Report. 50 episodes. It's, to be honest, it's a little hard to believe when we got started on episode 1 almost a year ago now. I mean, I guess it must be, right? There's 52 weeks in a year. We do one a week. So yeah, about a year ago. It's hard to imagine we'd already be at episode 50. So thank you to all of you in our audience who've been with us on this journey as this show continues to grow, as we continue to have more free-range conversations with folks who are, I think, fairly interesting. Both those who are participants in the Free State movement and people who are doing interesting projects for the cause of liberty around the country. So it's been a wild journey. Glad to have you with me. We're going to have a great show today. But before we get to today's guest, I want to tell you about some of the events that are coming up for the Free State Project. Well, first of all, I want to mention these are not Free State Project events, but these are coming up this very week. Recently we had on the show Representative Tom Mannion talking about some of the fights for liberty that are going on in the state legislature this year. I want to highlight that there are 2 public hearings coming up this week, Thursday and Friday at the New Hampshire State House. On Thursday, there's going to be a public hearing on universal education freedom accounts. So that means that every family in New Hampshire will be able to access the tax dollars that would otherwise go to government schools. They would be able to access those funds for their child to be able to use for sending them to a different public school, funding private school tuition, or even homeschooling expenses. You could use these funds to pay for the Ron Paul homeschooling curriculum if you wanted to. Right now in New Hampshire, that is there's our income cap thresholds on it, which means the people who actually pay the most taxes can't get their tax money back to educate their children as they see fit. So that's coming up on Thursday. Again, as the Free State Project, we do not endorse legislation. That's not our role, but in the purpose of sharing information, I thought some of you might be interested. I know there are calls for people to come out and testify on that. And also on Friday, because boy, it's coming fast and heavy right now in New Hampshire. On Friday is going to be the public hearing for the Defend the Guard bill in the New Hampshire House of Representatives. And that is the legislation to call home our New Hampshire State National Guardsmen from wars that have not been properly declared by Congress as the Constitution requires. We spoke about that with Representative Mannion, who is the sponsor of that legislation, recently on the program. And you can, if that's something that's of interest to you, then the public hearing is definitely something to check out and maybe participate in and share your thoughts with your representatives. That's why we have public hearings. I know definitely I'll be there on Friday. I'm looking forward to it. I have some opinions to share, and I hope that you do too. But for official Free State Project events, it's going to be a very busy 6 months ahead of us. Of course, I will let you know we have some great announcements coming in the near future as we are tooling up, gearing up for the New Hampshire Liberty Forum taking place in April. That's April 24th through the 27th. And the Porcupine Freedom Festival coming up in June 16th through the 22nd. Look for announcements coming in the very near future as we start to confirm speakers and our programs for these events. But I really want to emphasize the event that's coming up in the start of February, so very close. And that is Porcupine Day, the 9th annual Porcupine Day. It's on February 2nd, 2025, which some might note is traditionally Groundhog Day. But what do these groundhogs know anyway? They claim to be able to predict the weather. They're wrong more than they're right. Who cares about the groundhogs? Let's celebrate Porcupine Day because porcupines we may not be able to predict the weather, but we can forecast the future of freedom, and we work towards a better, freer future every single day. And so Porcupine Day, number 9, we're celebrating the 9th anniversary of when on the Free State Project, we reached 20,000 pledges, triggering the move to New Hampshire as thousands have flocked to the Free State in search of freedom. So 9 years we'll be celebrating. And if you get your tickets at fsp.org/Porcupine Day, then go ahead and use the promo code Pork Report. That's pork with a C, not a K. Pork Report from me as a special thank you, and take 5% off your tickets for Porcupine Day. So Pork Report, get 5% off. Thank you from me. I hope to see you there. And I will just say, just a slight commentary. I can't help but notice, in New Hampshire, right now, the legislature is looking to dealing with great legislation, dealing with furthering liberty, things that has a real opportunity to pass, like Defend the Guard, like universal school choice, like right to work, like further tax and spending cuts. It's so amazing to be in a state which is making positive advancements for freedom, because, of course, as you know, I came from the state of Maine, a state that I still love, people that I still love very much. And it's very hard to watch that as New Hampshire continues to advance the ball on freedom. In next door in the Pine Tree State, what has been often called vacation land, that's what's on the license plates, it becomes more and more taxation land. Maine just, it's been revealed as facing a massive budget shortfall because of all the overspending that's gone on in recent years, hundreds of millions of dollars budget shortfall. And the Democratic governor, Janet Mills, just came out with a budget proposal to raise taxes even higher. It's already one of the highest tax states in the country. And it's, I just say it's a shame to see, but it really kind of goes to emphasize the uniqueness of what's being built here in New Hampshire. When you concentrate so many libertarians in one place to advance freedom in the culture and at the ballot box, it's making a difference. That's why New Hampshire is the one state in New England that is consistently advancing freedom on both personal freedom and economic freedom, when so many of the states around us, like Maine, are falling behind. And so my heart goes out to the folks in Maine who are living under this tyrannical oppression of big government, nanny state overspenders. But you can continue to work to try to turn things around in your state, and I commend those who are. But you can also come and be a part of what we're building here in New Hampshire. And I encourage people who are interested in learning more, come out to one of these events. Come out to Porcupine Day, come out to the New Hampshire Liberty Forum, come out to Pork Fest, or come out for a porcupine vacation and stay at the Independence Inn. Any single time of year, we love to have you, and we have daily events going on in the Free State. Now, on today's episode, we're going to be talking about food freedom in the Free State. And I'm very excited to have on this program for the very first time. He is the founder of the Free State Food Network. He is also a founder of the Shell Social Club, a Liberty Clubhouse in the Free State region, which in the Seacoast region, which I am a member of. He's also a co-owner of the Independence Inn and the owner of a new business called New Hampshire Spotlight. His name is Stephen Nass, and we're gonna have a good talk about food freedom in New Hampshire. Stephen, welcome to the Porcupine Report.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Well, thanks
to be here.
Well, thanks for coming on, Stephen. I really appreciate, as I guess it's been just over a year now that I've been transitioning into New Hampshire and getting oriented here, and especially kind of landing in the Seacoast region, you get to meet, some of the people who are really going above and beyond to welcome new people and to help people kind of get oriented, new movers get oriented in the region. And I've really appreciated your leadership at the Shell Clubhouse. I know that there have been times when I've just needed help, moving in furniture, and you and your wife have been helpful, and so many other folks in the community have been so helpful. So thank you for being a local leader and all that you're doing.
Happy to help.
Well, it's been such a warm welcome from so many people, and I know we were talking before the show. It's been 8 years now since you made the move. You made the move from
Yes.
Wisconsin. I guess before we talk about kind of food freedom and the state of all that in New Hampshire, tell us, I guess, a little bit more your story, why you decided to make the move to New Hampshire and what your journey's been like.
Sure. So I moved here in 2017 from Wisconsin. And before that, my whole adult life, I'd been involved in libertarian activities, helping with the Libertarian Party in Wisconsin and not too much national stuff. But I was also active as a chef out there and built my career around that. And when I first heard about New Hampshire, when I first heard about the Free State Project, I knew right away, I was like, I'm going to have to go there and do that. Because I was very frustrated with the activism scene for liberty people in Wisconsin. It's a huge waste of time. The politics of it, you're just banging your head against the wall, repeating the same things over and over again. Nobody shows up for anything. It's just not ideal. So I thought, hey, it looks like I saw on the news, there's actually the Free Keene people. And I was like, whoa, people are actually like doing something out there. It might not be all the best guided stuff out in Free Keene at that time. I don't know. But I was like, at least they're showing up and they're doing something. And that's when I decided I need to make that my plan to move out here. And it's been the case. People show up and stuff is actually happening and we're winning out here. And it's truly amazing. Couldn't have done it anywhere else.
Wow. So so you were a chef out in Wisconsin before you came out here. What was it like?
Yes.
Leaving that job behind and coming out to New Hampshire? Did you have a good sense of how you were going to land on your feet? Did you come out to visit once or twice before you came out? What was that journey like for you?
I had never visited. I didn't research New Hampshire hardly at all because I was just wherever the Free State Project was, that's where I was going. So I just got really lucky that it's a beautiful state, a beautiful place. But no, I actually, to make the transition easier, and I recommend other people do this if it's kind of in your wheelhouse, I got a job at a summer camp the summer I moved out here. And so they are used to hiring people that aren't from around here. I mean, they'll hire people internationally, and then they provide food. They provide housing. It's a great networking opportunity. You get to live. I mean, I get to live on a lake for a summer, and it was just really amazing. And then during that time, I would spend my days off either going to Free State Project activities or traveling around trying to find what my job was going to be after that. And I found it not difficult at all. I quickly learned that the Seacoast is where the food scene is, and just went on social media and started messaging. I actually Googled like who are the best chefs in New Hampshire, and I just found their social media and messaged them directly and said like, where should I work? Will you let me do a stage, which is like a working interview, and found employment pretty easily after that.
Awesome.
Yeah. And then since then, gone on to start The Shell, as you're aware. That was Dennis Pratt and I were the two biggest founders of that. He's been on the show numerous times before. And that was basically when we first landed on the Seacoast area. It wasn't as unified as it is now. You kind of had those people over there went to those activities. The gun people did their thing. The homesteaders did their thing. Homeschool did their thing. And Seacoast didn't go to Manchester. And Manchester didn't come to the Seacoast because they said we're elitist. And there wasn't much mixing. So we actually decided, like, we need to solve this. We need to get everyone to mix together. And now you're seeing the culture of the Free State Project these years later, where it's actually, like, much more in a decentralized way. It's pretty wonderful.
Yeah, it is nice. I suppose I'm benefiting from all the work that so many people have done before I got here, but it is nice to come in and you have kind of these established clubhouses. Of course, the Quill in Manchester is the original, but you've got the Shell, you've got the Prickle, you've got the Warehouse, you've got new things popping up even up in the North Country. It's really been nice to see how every region seems to the community, the Free State community there seems to kind of develop its own character. But it's nice, at least between Manchester and the Seacoast, it really does seem that one of the frustrating points I think with New Hampshire is that there's not a direct road. There's not a direct highway to get you there. It's a bit of a roundabout drive, but it's not too bad. It's about an hour, and it is nice to see a lot of familiar faces, like on both sides, people kind of cross-pollinating and these kind of different regional cultures mixing a bit. I know it was great too. I know Dennis organized earlier. Well, I want to say earlier this year, but really it was late last year in the fall. It's already the new year. Kind of that similar cultural exchange between like the Seacoast region and the North Country, which oftentimes I think the North Country folks can, they got a great culture up there, but they can be a little isolated from us down south. And so that kind of cultural exchange is great. Yeah,
that's really wonderful. It's good to mix like that. And because we have unified in such a way and are, sharing a lot more and communicating a lot more, that's how I was able to start the Free State Food Network. A little bit of a tongue twister there, but Free State Food Network, because it's covering the entire group of Free Staters, the whole state. I was able to create an organization to help network so that if you're in Manchester, you know who to go to for a restaurant, or if you're looking to get produce, what farm stand should you go to if you want to give your money to the Liberty people?
Yeah. So tell me. So tell us all a little bit more about the Free State Food Network. So I have a copy of a publication that you guys put out, though I think I heard you're going to a digital version. But this is the Summer 2024 Free State New Food Network Food Freedom Guide. How would you describe what is the mission of the Free State Food Network, and and how do you go about promoting that mission?
Yeah, so the mission's on the first page here. It's basically, we have a few goals. One is to strengthen our food network by networking internally, just so that it's hard to hire people these days. It's hard to do a lot of business stuff. So if we can network and help each other out, share resources, share knowledge, that benefits all of us. Then another mission is to help promote those in the Free State Food Network. So if you're a pizzeria, we say, hey, everybody, this is the pizzeria to go have your meetups at, right? So I could talk more about our upcoming promotions in a minute here. But then the other aspect is the political one. In New Hampshire, we have the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, which is great about doing report cards for the politicians and following Liberty bills. But even with the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, stuff slips by them. Right before I started the Free State Food Network, I think the year or two before, I noticed a bill that made a permitting system for identifying mushrooms and selling wild mushrooms, like some massive thing where it's like 3 tiers and you have to take tests and pay for permits for each tier of mushrooms. It's just like, how did this get by? While at the same time I'm seeing us celebrating all these successes, and like that's like an obvious loss as far as I'm concerned. So what I'm trying to do, and I hope others will emulate me, I'm trying to do everything cookie cutter so that you can copy me. But I picked a single issue, which is still pretty broad, but the food industry, and politically targeting just that. I'm not touching on marijuana farming because that's a whole big thing, and I'm not touching on school lunches because it's another like extremely politicized thing. But everything else to do with food, focusing on that. And just I'm hoping that other people will take their topics, like the education people and the marijuana people and the gun people, they got those covered, but there's lots of niche areas that people moving to New Hampshire might know a lot more about. And I'm hoping they'll focus on those areas just like I am with food, because we've had wins already. It's not difficult to testify in bills in New Hampshire. It's super easy to write bills and submit them. And I mean, this year I think like 1,000 got submitted. There's so many that it's not a hard process to do. So I'm trying to submit practical bills, trying to get kind of just cross our fingers, maybe we'll get lucky kind of bills, and just push for food freedom, because I want us to be number one. Right now, if you do a Google search for like top 10 states for food freedom, we're not listed as number one. We're not listed anywhere in the top 10 probably. We should be though. I think we qualify. I just think we don't have the same publicity as states like Maine do.
Yeah, I know in Maine, I mean, there are a few areas of liberty that Maine has made some gains, even as it's fallen back in a lot of other areas. But like food sovereignty and cannabis are like the two things that come to mind, where Maine maybe has developed an edge in recent, at least the last 10 years that I've been involved, was involved in Maine. Well, go on. What were you going to say?
Well, it's just when it comes to like food freedom in Maine, it's like a thorn in my side a little bit, because people say they're super great on food freedom, but really they have a lot of red tape, and they'll say like, oh, in Maine they have a right to all these different food things, and it's like, yeah, because they can pass resolutions in Maine, but a resolution isn't like it's nothing. It's a statement, right? Like we don't really pass resolutions like that in New Hampshire. It's just not one of the things we do in our political process. So we don't have the headlines saying that we have food freedom, whereas they have this resolution that claims they're free. Well, like, you're just like, we're free. That doesn't just make you free, just saying you're free.
well, Maine did at the ballot box a few years back pass like a constitutional right to food, but it was and it was, they tried to very clarify, like, it's a negative right, not a positive right, not saying that the government's going to provide food for you as a right, like when people say a right to health care, right? But like you have the negative right to pursue whatever food you want, and the government, as long as you're not infringing on other people's rights, government should not interfere. Though it has been hasn't fully been tested in the courts to like what that actually means in practice. Maybe we'll see over time. But tell me more about, so how do you perceive like the state of food freedom in New Hampshire? I guess where we're coming from, like what are some highlights of kind of developments in food freedom in New Hampshire in, I don't know, the last 8 years that you've been involved in the state?
Yeah, so there's two major aspects that it's helpful to think about. One is a lot of the issues with food, lack of freedom, are from the federal government. Yeah. So maybe this year with the Doge people up there, we'll see a little progress there. I don't know. I don't think RFK is going to be a food freedom guy necessarily, but a lot of the stuff, the regulations, the rules that we follow, the guidelines are coming down from the federal government. And then we have issues like slaughterhouses in the 70s used to be run by the state. And New Hampshire was one of many states that said, oh, federal government, you guys can take that over. And that was all fine and dandy for a little while until they started raising the red tape, raising the cost of owning or starting a slaughterhouse. And now we have a huge shortage. And if you look the past 5 years, probably, there's always bills trying to solve the slaughterhouse issues every year, because it's just such a problem. And none of them are ever like, well, let's just take it back from the feds, because the state government doesn't want that. State government in New Hampshire doesn't really want to grow that much generally. Like the Commissioner of Agriculture doesn't really want his program to grow any more than it already is, which means the feds have it. So that's one aspect, is trying to either take back control from the feds or nullify what the federal government is doing. They have there's numerous issues where that fits into play. But then on the other side, it's just finding the areas where we're generally free, but we could be better. Like raw milk is a good example of this, where you're not going to have any issues getting raw milk in New Hampshire. It's sold all over the place. There's lots of farm stands and such that you can get it.
It's not like in Ohio where my brother has to get it, but they have to call it pet milk because you're not allowed to have it for human consumption, but everyone knows it's not. Yeah, really you can.
Not a problem here. You could get raw milk. You can get raw goat milk. It's not a problem. You can, but then if you look at like our rules regarding it, they're a little bit restrictive and it's unnecessary. And I've been trying to push to open that up and haven't gotten very far with it. But it'll say things like, okay, you can make your raw milk ice cream and sell it, but it needs to be in these little containers, like maximum size small little containers. When you go to the grocery store, you don't buy the little tiny, like you're just forcing it to be expensive. You're paying for extra packaging. You won't be able to sell as much because you can't sell in volume. You can't sell it wholesale, in like 3-gallon tubs or whatever that like a restaurant or like we have dairy bars. They don't call that here, but dairy places that sell ice cream all over New Hampshire, right? Like hundreds of them. They could be buying this raw milk ice cream and selling it, but they don't want to buy it in these tiny little containers. But the authoritarians, their actual excuse is it needs to stay in these small containers because somebody might buy a big thing of ice cream, eat it, leave it out on the counter overnight, then put it back in the freezer, and then open it up a week later, and it'll have too much bacteria in it, and somebody could get sick, even though, they're not showing that that's ever happened to anyone. I don't think people are that dumb to like leave raw dairy out on the counter overnight and just be like, yeah, this is fine. Seems like at that point they're taking the risk on their own. Like,
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
But there's little things like that where we can just be pushing to get a little bit more free. So those are like the two political directions.
Are those some of the are we seeing any action on those items in the legislature this year?
Yeah. So, well, I could touch on past stuff that happened just real briefly as well.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We've had successes regarding like homesteading laws every year. Just like 2 years ago, the big win that the Free State Food Network that we had was the revenue cap for homesteading sales. There was a limit on if you were selling food out of your home or off your farm. After your revenue was over a certain amount, you needed to get all these inspections and permits and pay fees and that kind of thing. And I had seen that before they had raised that revenue cap, and so I put in a bill to double it. And when I went to go testify on it, they were like, well, why did you pick this number? And I was like, it's just arbitrary. The numbers, I just am trying to pass this so that we could just raise it. And they're like, well, let's just get rid of the number altogether. No revenue cap. You don't need the license anymore at all. And so I was like, that's great. And it helped that the state testified that they had no idea how many people were within compliance of that law. They weren't going around checking homesteads revenue.
So it was a rule that was not enforced. That was unenforceable.
Yeah, so they just got rid of it, and I was like, great, more freedom there. Last year, our big win was our organic program in New Hampshire was subsidized by the state, and the amount that they were charging for the program for organic was set on prices in the 1980s. So they were paying like $300 a year instead of like $3,000 a year. And the state said, we don't have the staff to do the organic program anymore. It's a federal program. Why is the state of New Hampshire the ones doing the inspections and the permitting and all that stuff? Doesn't make any sense. And so we got rid of that. We managed to successfully push it back so that they can go to Maine and get it certified. They can go to Vermont. They can go to Massachusetts. They can get a private certification. Lots of other options there. But now the taxpayers aren't subsidizing organic farming, and that just made a much more competitive space in the farming world. But yeah, you asked about like current stuff. I have a little cheat sheet here because there are so many bills. But most of the stuff, I guess, to summarize it, some of the stuff is helping expand homestead food operations again, like adding freeze-dried food to something that you can prepare. There's a big change that could happen relating to establishments not needing to have food if they're serving alcohol. One cultural difference between where I'm from in Wisconsin and New Hampshire is New Hampshire doesn't have bars. Every establishment that serves alcohol is also a restaurant. They all serve food. At a minimum, they're serving like pizza. And in Wisconsin, in the Midwest, there's bars like in every neighborhood. So we just don't have that here because it's illegal. You have to serve food, and if you're of a certain size, you actually have to serve a certain percentage of your sales in food as well. So there's no like small bars.
This now I wasn't aware of this. Is this some like remnant of like Prohibition era thinking, or is this like just like New England Puritanism that's just like still on the books? Like what's do you know the origins?
I'm not sure the history. No, I'm not sure the history. I know we were a weird state when it came to prohibition. That's why we have the state-run liquor stores.
Yeah.
But I'm not really sure where the origin came. It's just a strange thing we've had forever, and because it's not the culture to have bars here, nobody really thinks much about it. But restaurateurs think about it.
So if I go into a bar, I can ask them, where's like the one pretzel you're keeping in the back room to like to claim to be a restaurant. Okay. So is that's something that is there legislation dealing with that this year?
There's legislation dealing with that. So that could be a big change if that goes somewhere. What else? There's a bill for allowing the sale of rabbit meat in the state. That could be fun. To try and solve this slaughtering problem that we have, there's a bill that would offer some exemptions for slaughtering in the state, and because it's you could go to a slaughterhouse and you can have your cow slaughtered, but to get USDA certified, that's a whole big thing. And then you need that certification so you can sell it to restaurants and grocery stores, etc. So there's a bill saying if you're producing it all within the state, then you don't need to go to the USDA certified plant. You can go to a local butcher or local slaughter.
So like a nullification strategy.
Yes. So
awesome.
that could be a really nice one.
Can I ask I know this is a federal thing, but Thomas Massie is always talking about the Prime Act. Is this something that would kind of impact the slaughterhouse problem that we're having in all the states?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm not like the foremost expert on the Prime Act, but it's that's one of the things he's trying to cover. Thomas Massie is like the only politician working on the national scene for food freedom right now.
Well, I keep texting him, trying to get him to come to Pork Fest, where our theme this year is going to be Taste the Revolution, a great event to talk about food freedom. I'd love for him to come talk about the Prime Act.
He should come. I mean, just in terms of legalizing food freedom through like the political process, the Free State Food Network stands alone. I can't find any similar organization in any state. There's a Farm and Ranch Food Freedom Alliance in like Texas, but their name is not. It's like a freedom for me, not for you. We'll take all the subsidies we can get kind of thing. Yeah. It's like that's not really freedom. There is a less than political scene with like Joel Salatin and his crew with their rogue food conferences on the national scene.
Yeah.
But they're more about opting out of the system than trying to change it from within.
I see.
Mm-hmm.
And before I interrupted you, it looked like you had some other bills coming up that you wanted to mention.
Oh, let's see here. I mean, there's a lot of like slight changes to like brew pub licensing, food service definitions, that kind of stuff, but that's all pretty boring, honestly. There's one bill that'll allow food service operations to use commercial equipment. So right now you aren't supposed to be using commercial equipment because you're a homestead, so you're just supposed to be operating out of like a small kitchen. So there's one bill to allow you to use like commercial stand mixers, which will allow you to scale up in a big way and right now the way the law is written, you need to do all your food prep in a kitchen. You can't have like a side prep room that isn't a kitchen that just has like tables and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a proposal to allow you to expand it in that way. These are all little things that don't probably excite most people, but the people that it impacts will be happy about it. There's a bill to allow salons and barber shops to serve alcohol, which is exciting.
That's a
Although
fun
I'm
one.
told that salons already are serving champagne. That's what I'm told. But but my
So
barber shop that I used to go to, they never gave me a beer or anything. So
I know
it
in
worked out
Maine
for us.
anyway, I would when I go to certain barber shops that they would offer me a beer. So I didn't realize that's not something they can do in New Hampshire.
No, did they sell it to you or did they hand it to you and just say this is yours?
They handed it to me. It wasn't like
Mm,
oh this costs extra. It was like, hey, you want to
yeah,
have a beer while we're cutting your hair?
I wonder if
Uh,
that's the loophole. I don't know.
I don't know. I don't know.
Well, that could be
Well, I
fun.
guess, what's that?
I said that could be fun though. I'd get your hair cut and they'll sell you a beer. That's
Yeah. As long
fun.
as the barber's not drinking the beer. I got I had a traumatic experience when I was a kid when the barber cut my ear. So let's no drunk cutting hair. Though I don't know that we need a law about that. I would say, I could use my discretion in the marketplace. We don't need to get the government involved. But
Yeah.
customers having a beer while you're getting your hair cut, that sounds great to me.
And if they nick you a little bit, but the beer is good, might be worth it.
Maybe it makes up for it.
Maybe it makes up for it.
So what would you say that your long-term like vision is for where you'd like to see kind of the free state of New Hampshire be when it comes to food freedom? I know there's all these frankly, one of the things I love is that, in New Hampshire, it seems like there are so many people working on advancing the ball on so many of these little
hmm
issues all over the place. It's in other states, I see like Liberty dying a death by 1,000 cuts. Even if you got a few great champions, they could only carry the ball on so many issues at once, while
hmm
statism just encroaches on everything. But in New Hampshire, it's like there's just so many people working on so many different things, and it's the state that's dying to death by 1,000 cuts.
Yeah.
When it comes to food freedom, like where would you like to see New Hampshire eventually be?
I want us to be the top of the list for food freedom. I don't know why we can't be. We should be. We need to start decentralizing these things. I think with the culture in New Hampshire and technological advances that we have now, there's no reason we can't be decentralizing a lot of these systems. And I think there's a lot of free staters working for secession as like a long-term plan, maybe not even within our lifetime, but like as a good end goal to keep pushing towards that direction. And I think that if they're going to do that, they need to free our food system first because it's attached to the feds. You can't just say our
Yeah.
state leaves and then they're like, well, we have all these programs like that are tied in. So yeah, long term, that's what I'm looking for is for us to be top of the list in every category in terms of food freedom, whether it's farming, whether it's the restaurant world. There's all sorts of monopolies out there when it comes to like health inspections and certifications and that kind of stuff. Getting that decentralized. It's going to be a lot of work, and we're going to have to keep moving it constantly and making sure it doesn't get rolled back again. But that's what I'd like to see, because really this government is pervasive in every aspect of the food industry, and it's pretty sneaky at times too. Like I told you about the organic industry just secretly being subsidized. There's also these hidden taxes that nobody knows about. Like if I mentioned checkoff programs to you, do you know what a checkoff program is? Yeah,
I
it's a
feel like
hidden tax.
I've heard it somewhere, but I don't know what it is.
It could have been for me. It's a hidden tax we're paying on our food. When you buy milk at the grocery store, you're paying a tax on that milk that you don't see in the form of a checkoff program. Where for every so many pounds of milk, they have to send money to this third party because the government says they have to. Basically, I can do a brief little history here. It used to be that when you paid your taxes or when you were selling products, you could check off that you wanted a certain percentage of these items or some extra money to go to these like programs that would market and advertise and do research for like a whole industry. So like milk, when you think of it's like the Got Milk campaign or Where's the Beef, it's like they're not really advertising any specific brand, but they're doing a whole big thing.
Advertise the whole industry. Yep.
Yeah, used to be voluntary, no longer voluntary. Now it's you have to send that money in, and like sometimes with the dairy industry is not the worst one in New Hampshire because there's some little programs they do, and I've had a nice little chat with the person running dairy program in New Hampshire that's marketing that gets money from that checkoff program, and they're like, well, it's kind of voluntary. He's like, nah, it's not really voluntary, but sometimes it's really bad. Like the cattle checkoff program goes to some cattle association that's out in Colorado. What do Colorado marketers know about helping like these small farmers in New Hampshire? It's absurd. We shouldn't have to pay these hidden taxes. And talking with these checkoff program people, they don't agree with the economics that the producer is just going to pass this cost on to the consumer. Like, I don't know. I don't know if it's like I don't know if it's like lefty think or what it is, but they just don't believe that that's the case. They're like, oh, the farmer just absorbed it. Like, yeah, I don't think so. So like, there's those aspects, and then like even when it comes to like our food insecurity people, so they're running soup kitchens and food pantries and that kind of thing. That used to be fairly local and fairly state run, and now it's again getting tied into the federal government, and we're going the route in that area. We're going the route of like California, where they're just like, we need to keep throwing money at it, and every time we throw money at it, more people participate in our program, and because more people participate in our program, we need more money. So it's just like every year I'm just seeing it ballooning and ballooning and ballooning, and it's all progressives in there. It's just sad, but
yeah. Well, you know, it's this is why you need libertarians who understand economics to write the policies.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you. Let's imagine I am someone who's planning a visit to New Hampshire, or I'm a recent new mover who's not, wants to explore the state and explore some of the different food offerings. What are some places that you would recommend that people check out, whether that be restaurants or other places that you might highlight within the Free State Food Network?
Within the Free State Food Network, I would recommend if you go to Wolfgang's Pizza over in Wolfboro, great pizza place. They're in the magazine here. Murphy's Tap Room if you're going to be out in Manchester. That's another good spot.
Tap Room Tuesday.
Yep. The owner there is not only a Free Stater, but I believe he's still a senator or state senator, right? So that's wonderful.
I know he was Senator Murphy was the only Liberty senator. But now I'm told, according to the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance, he just got some reinforcements. So there's 5 Liberty senators now, which means they can roll call.
That's what I hear too.
So presuming all 5 of those stay strong, we should have a good year for roll call votes in the Senate.
Yep. I would also recommend checking out Manna Kitchen, which is in Somersworth. They make their own like flatbread, and they're pretty tasty, like super healthy place to eat. They're fairly new. They haven't even been around a year yet. So I would definitely lend them your support. If you're looking for produce, Eden's Table farm stand is a big one. You can get raw milk and all sorts of stuff there. If you can see on the Free State Project calendar at fsb.org/calendar, anything at Bardo Farms, I recommend going to that because they'll probably be serving some Bardo food at their off-the-grid farm there. But yeah, those are some good options. Did I miss anything super interesting? The Forum Pub in Concord would be another one. They're not as out about being Free Stater associated, I think, as they used to be. Because they used to have a different name. I can't think of it off the top of my head, but I think it even predates the Quill, their previous location, as like a Free Stater hangout. And I would go check them out too. Give them some love. Those are good places. I mean, if you're going to get coffee, there's a few coffee roasters that'll send you some coffee in the guide here. If you're going to get lobster, there's a company called Fisher Lobster that'll send you lobster. I used to, at the Independence Inn there, we've gotten lobster deliveries before, and it's wonderful.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend those places.
Yeah. Yeah.
Pick your own blueberries. There's blueberry farms we've got.
Yeah.
Go check that out in July.
And all of those out there who are maybe seafood lovers who maybe live inland a ways, that's one of the great things about living so close to the coast is lobster. At times, I've found lobster to be cheaper than pork. Whereas you go out to
not bad.
and you can get soft shell lobster, which in my opinion is so much juicier and sweeter than the hard shell stuff that gets shipped inland because the soft shell lobsters die. So anyway, there's some more incentives for people to come check out the Free State.
Yeah, lobster's a lot cheaper here, that's for sure. It's a lot cheaper. You can get some good deals if you look around. I mean, during the pandemic, there was super cheap lobster for a little while there because everything was shut down and they just needed to offload it. So there was just fishermen with like coolers on the side of the road giving it away.
Well, and I remember during COVID, China was, when people were saying, hey, this virus seemed to originate in Wuhan at that lab there, China was making counter accusations by saying, actually, we think it was imported here in Maine lobster. So weird accusations flying around. So I think maybe some of the international trade around lobster suppressed a little bit. So as far as I know, COVID did not originate in Maine in the lobster industry. So I think it probably came from the lab.
I think it probably did too. Yep. A lab somewhere.
Yeah. All right. Well, anything else to cover as we're kind of in the last 10 minutes of the program?
I can just roll through some things for the viewers there. So this Food Freedom Guide, I have physical copies, but if you're not in New Hampshire, it's going to be a lot harder to get one. So if you go to freestatefood.net and sign up for emails on there, it'll send you the digital copy, and it's just as beautiful, but it's digital. I don't know if we're going to do another, this is our second edition of it. I don't know if we're going to do it exactly the same again right now. It's been difficult just to distribute this because they're big and beautiful, but they're heavy and bulky, and the Free State Project's fairly decentralized. I can't just bring them all to one place and hand them out to everybody at once. It's difficult. So I'm working on alternatives. We might do a digital version that covers even more things, but with the New Hampshire Spotlight, I'm trying to find ways to promote us even better. I've been thinking about how the Free State Food Network is promoting our Liberty businesses, but only to Liberty people, when they can sell food to anybody. Or services too, but it doesn't necessarily have to be to Liberty people. So I'm working on a farm adventure guide, which if anybody wants to advertise with me, shoot me an email. But it's going to be advertising supported, and I'm hoping to have it widely distributed throughout New Hampshire. And it will spotlight a lot of our Liberty-friendly farms on there, but it will be read and used by the general population and tourists coming in, that kind of thing. I think that'll benefit our group a lot better. And I'm working on also a form of postcard local advertising that's like group shared advertising to again help our businesses kind of promote themselves and go in that direction instead.
Awesome. And I know this is maybe slightly off topic from all of this, but I know, and I'm not sure if you're ready to talk about or mention it, but I know you were working on like a guide for people arriving in the Free State. Is that something you'd want to mention, or is that still
we can talk about that.
It's still in progress.
It's still in progress, but it'll probably be always in progress to some extent. The Porcupine Handbook was something I put together recently just to, the problem that I saw was people on the way to New Hampshire, when they get to New Hampshire, like, I'm here, now what do I do? And for someone like you or me, we're already established before we even get here on like what we want to do. Like we can look for need and try and fill it, and we have our own ambitions and that kind of thing. A lot of people have difficulty with that, and I mean, I'm sure both of us had to like find our place over the course of a long time. But this is just a guide that says when you get here, here are some things you can do today to help us out. You can go to the New Hampshire Liberty Alliance and do this. You can go join this community center. This is how you testify. Like you don't have to like nobody. If you don't know what classes to go to, you're not going to know how to testify on bills. But we want everybody to do it, right? It's the same with how do you join the Quill or Shell community centers. You don't know until you know, right? So this is just a centralized resource to be like, these are the links you got to click. These are the people you got to talk to. Here's how you make sure when you get here, you have a welcome wagon waiting to help you unload your furniture, and just be an overall guide. Like you get here and you want to homeschool your kids. What does that entail? It's actually super, super easy, and you wouldn't know that. There's a lot of misinformation out there too about it. So it's just trying to consolidate and say, this is what you can do. And, you know, we do have a problem. It'll never end, but like a long-term problem where people might get here and then they're like, well, I can live free now. And then they kind of drop out of the movement. And they're probably still voting with the freedom people, and maybe they're following stuff, and maybe we can activate them to do big things when they're, you know, when COVID hits, they'll probably come to the protest then, and, you know, then they'll, you know, rustle their jimmies or whatever then. But this is to trying to like help people, like, you're here, here's how you actually can participate and get involved and stay with us. And that's the ultimate goal of the guide. So I don't know where it's going to, right now it's just getting distributed through everybody messaging each other, but we'll find somewhere online to post it. Maybe the FSP wants it, or the show.
Well,
I
think
anywhere.
I think it's definitely a resource. We'd love to be able to distribute like through the FSP when you're ready to, when you feel like you're ready for that. I know, you know, we've been talking a lot internally about like the different phases of our pipeline, right? We have the you know, the phase that people don't even know about the Free State Project, and we're just like promoting what we're doing on social media and trying to get people interested. Then we're trying to get people to come out and visit and explore what is happening in New Hampshire. Then once people have declared that they're moving, right, we're helping them with the move. But I think you're right. I think historically there's been a bit of a drop off after that point. You get people here, you have the welcome wagon, and it's like, great, good luck.
Yeah.
We really do want to, we have been talking, what can we do more in this final stage, this engagement phase, to keep people engaged with the community and with the movement, and find ways to plug in and not just kind of drop off the radar. Yeah. So I really appreciate
even like, I was just gonna say, I'm fairly extroverted myself, and even like when I first moved here after that summer camp, I moved to Portsmouth, and I lived like 2 blocks away from a Liberty Community Center that was called the Praxium that was in Portsmouth at that time. I had no idea how to become a member. It took me a year. Like I could just walk over there, but I generally knew where it was, didn't know how to get an invite, didn't know how to do anything there. And then I just finally figured out when an event was happening and showed up. Like we shouldn't have to do that. We should just help each other. And,
Well, I know probably I'm a special case because a lot of folks were so welcoming when I arrived. I felt like I was inundated with so much help and information. But certainly we want to replicate that for as many people as possible. And I really appreciate it. I think that's the best thing about the Free State. The Free State movement is, you know, in your case, like you're not waiting around for direction. You see a hole and you're building something to help fill the hole. So that's really the best of what the Free State movement. So thank you so much for what you're doing, Stephen.
Yep.
And any final words or any final things you want to share with folks before we wrap up here?
Well, just feel free to follow up with me at any of these places, at the Shell or at New Hampshire Spotlight. If you want ducks, we're going to be hatching out ducks again this spring. So if you moved here and you want to start getting going with ducks or chickens or anything like that, let me know. And then, I'm happy if you're in the food industry, join the Free State Food Network.
Awesome, Stephen. Thank you so much. Thanks for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
All right. Well, I'm looking forward to, I'm sure I'll see Stephen at the Shell. There's always so many great events going on in the Free State at all of our different community centers. I do want to remind you all one last time this episode that, of course, February 2nd, we are having our 9th annual celebration of Porcupine Day. And we're doing it at the Rugged Axe. We are throwing some axes. We're having good times with good people, and it's some great talks and some great axe throwing. So I hope that you come out and join us. And please use the discount code as a thank you from me to you for being a part of our audience. Use the discount code Pork Report, pork with a C, for 5% off your tickets. And you can get those tickets at fsp.org/Porcupine Day. So I hope to see you there. It's going to be a great time. And of course, be on the lookout for news about other events that we are gearing up for. The New Hampshire Liberty Forum in April, the Porcupine Freedom Festival in June. Tickets are on sale for both of those as we speak right now at their respective websites, which you can find at fsp.org. So I will look forward to seeing you there. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight. Furthermore, my opinion is the Federal Reserve should be destroyed.